Okay, Assalamualaikum. I bid to our lecturer, Dr. Jadila Idris, and all my fellow friends. Today, we are from Group 2, is going to present our case study regarding organ transplant. So, our group members are Adia Safia, Muhammad Fakrul Fahmi, Patricia Hanum, Patricia Liana, and me, myself, Fatin Najwa binti Mat Syawal. So, next, the presentation will be proceed by Alia Safia.
Okay, thank you, Fatin Najwa. Alright, so I will present for the case study. Alright, 9-year-old Mila Lambert has a rare genetic condition that once caused her excruciating bouts of stomach pain. Mila's pain was caused by the slow disintegration of her pancreas. Her mom, Courtney, made the difficult decision to have the organ removed last September. Her mom stated that the pancreas basically digests itself when that specific gene exists in her daughter's body. And by the time they headed into surgery, Mila's had almost entirely digested itself. There was only 5% left. So, pediatric surgeon Dr. Gordon Thomas said one way around this was an uncommon procedure in which insulin producing cells from Mila's pancreas were isolated and transplanted into her liver instead. He and his team did that to Mila, and her quality of life improved very well, going from extensive pain medication, not being able to go to school, and to now living a more normal life. This kind of transplant, this kind of transplant procedure has been done less than 10 times in Australian children. So since receiving the pancreas cell transplant, Mila no longer experienced creeping bouts of pain and was free to resume hobbies such as rollerblading. Professor Wayne Houghton runs a cutting-edge transplant research lab at Westmead Hospital in Sydney. There's a very few organ donors, he said. Last year, there were 1,850 patients on our waiting list all around Australia for transplant, but only 300 organ donors. There's this huge differential between the number of organ donors and recipients. One promising solution, Professor Houghton said, was a medical technology called xenotransplantation. Xenotransplantation uses animal tissues to treat human diseases. The animal cells are first genetically modified, so they are safe for the body and aren't rejected following the transplant. Perhaps the most prominent example came from the United States earlier this year when David Bennett survived for 2 months after receiving a pig heart transplant. Researchers such as Professor Houghton have also been looking at using animal tissues to treat diabetes and kidney disease. Okay, so I will explain for the background knowledge. Okay, then the transplanting of cells, tissues, and complete organs from one species to another is known as xenotransplantation. The ongoing scarcity of donated human organs, as well as breakthroughs in understanding of the biology of organ and tissue rejection, have fueled interest in animal to human xenotransplants. So this is the history of xenotransplantation. In 1667, xenotransfusions from lambs in human occur, and then it progressed continually by using another animals such as rabbit, pig, chimpanzee, and baboons. Until the latest case is in 2022, which is now the first transplant of the genetically engineered pig heart into a person may have been cut short due to a well-known and available risk. So I will pass next issue to the next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Alia. So I will present about ethical questions. So for this case study, the ethical question is, should xenotransplantation be accepted for both human and animal? Next is for the facts of this case study. The first fact is 9-year-old Mila Lambert has a rare genetic condition that gives her excruciating bouts of stomach pain that is caused by the slow disintegration of her pancreas. Second, the pancreas is an important organ in the body. It produces the hormone insulin, which regulates the amount of glucose in the bloodstream. Diabetes, renal problems, and even brain damage can occur if blood glucose levels are not appropriately controlled. Third is one promising solution Professor Houghton said was a medical technology called xenotransplantation that uses animal tissues to treat human disease. Animal cells are first genetically modified, so they are safe for the body and are rejected following the transplant. Next, pigs are commonly used for xenotransplant because they are not endangered. They grow quickly and their organs are of similar size to humans. One of the biggest hurdles of xenotransplantation is public acceptance. Last but not least, Professor Dr. Mohammed Ghali recently said it was acceptable for Muslims to receive pig tissue transplant in certain circumstances. So next, I will pass to Fatin Najwa.
Thank you, Batrisha Hanum. So from the case study, there are a few questions that arises, and the first one is any transplantation a viable option for everyone in either way? Is it affordable for everyone? Secondly, does xenotransplantation shorten the organ transplant waiting list? Third question is xenotransplantation safe for humans and suits to religious requirements? The fourth question is, does xenotransplantation respect the human and animal rights? The fifth one is, does xenotransplantation have harmful side effects towards human body after the transplantation? Next. So, these are stakeholders that we have been listed, that we have listed. There are four, which are recipient and recipient's family, doctors, animals as donor, and also community. So, the value or concerns of recipient and recipient's family, both concern that value the recipient health uh, and well-being. Families also concerned about the fairness of the recipient being treated as well as respecting to their religious demand. So the bioethical principles is justice. Okay, second stakeholder is doctors. Doctors are concerned that the recipient cannot be treated for organ transplant as of shortage of organ supply and needed to wait on waiting list. Thus, doctor see the benefits of using animal to human organ transplantation as a way to overcome the problem. So the bioethical principle are respect for person and maximizing benefits or minimizing harms. So the third stakeholder is animals, which is the donor. It concerned about the animal's health and the organ's viability for transplantation. It needed to be cared for from the beginning of its existence in order to be healthy and useful for transplantation. So this also concern that as concern for animals extends to the nature of endangered animals. Thus, the choice of animal as donor is very particular. So the bioethical principle is respect for animals. As for stakeholder community, the community concerned about the safety of the residents and that the transplantation quality matches their expectations. So they also concerned about religious demands. The bioethical principles are respect for person and also justice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fatin Najwa. So, our group mate has decided for the for the position that xenotransplantation should not be accepted as an alternative of organ transplantation for both humans and animals. This is because it goes against humans' nature because animal organs are not designed for humans. And it requires extensive genetic modification to make them fit for humans. Furthermore, certain religions condemn religious practices such as blood transfusion and animal selection, which makes xenotransplantation a source of conflict. On the other hand, the technique violates animals' rights by putting animals in danger in order to meet human demand. In terms of fairness, recipients on the waiting list should not be unable to choose between animal or human organ for transplantation due to their desperate need to live. Finally, the xenotransplantation consequences of non-acceptance animal genes, the human body exposes human to a high risk of infection. Next is about the factual content. So the first one is it has a potential of animals infections. This is because viruses can be transmitted into a human, which can risk the human life, as well as the possibility of such pathogen adapting for human-to-human transfer. Given the number of viruses that reside in animals, breeding germ-free donors will be impossible. Public health officials recognize that xenotransplantation might transfer dangerous animal virus to human, which can risk human life. Porcine endogenous retrovirus that have infected human cells are one of the examples of big viruses. And as we know, David Burnett, who only survived for 2 months after undergoing xenotransplantation of pig's hearts. And the second one is weaken social integration. This is because the procedures of xenotransplantation may weaken social integration by disregarding religion, such as some religions forbid blood transfusion and animal selection, particularly pigs and cows. Thank you.
So for our ethical consideration, we have placed 4 elements for our discussion. So the first one is respect for person. So we should concern about religious restriction on using faith for human bodies, although some of the religious, such as Islamic ruling, says that something forbidden that can become permissible if there is a medical necessity. So the next one. So for the next one is maximize benefit and minimize harm. So we should concern about the patient well-being. Doctors have devised a method to reduce the time spent on the organ transplant waiting list while also improving patient survival. Although the procedure used to maximize the benefit and minimize harm, it can give side effect of recipient body. Next. So for the respect for animal, the animal should not be utilized to treat all human disease since it is harmful to the animal and increase the risk of extinction. And the last one is the justice. The community should concern about the safety and therapeutic effect of the transplantation to human body. So the last one is the alternative option. So artificial organ as an alternative to surgery to reduce organ infection and give and essentially limit the supply of organ. Artificial organs have several advantages, including the ability to mass produce them and the fact the patient are less likely to have an organ rejection. It also individualizes the organ using patient cell, within the result that the organ will less likely be rejected by the human body, and when employing an artificial organ, doctor don't need to utilize immunosuppression like they would use after the surgery. So I think that's all from us. Thank you for listening to our discussion.